and I'm going to introduce you to the subject of critical thinking. Now, if you notice, a lot of people talk about critical thinking. It's a very popular concept in the workplace. But I mean, Abigail was introducing me saying I've advised over 150 clients. Yes, that's true. 250 projects. Yes. From personal memos, not personal memos. I mean, I wrote them, direct memos that I wrote. I remember the last one was about 3 weeks ago, Sunday afternoon, hot Sunday afternoon, sat down, drafted a memo that was going straight to the president. So my work spans from that kind of thing. And I wrote that on behalf of a very high profile client. From that type of influence to subnationals, including Lagos State, to Iyabasira in Idumota market. I've advised that whole spectrum. So I'm very well qualified to say the things I'm going to say. So I don't take it as pride or arrogance. It's just the reality of some of the things I know and I love to share. So when we say critical thinking, the first comment I'd like to make is that I have not met a lot of people in my career in this country that understand critical thinking. They apply it, they use it, some are very good at it, but very few people have the ability to explain it and bring it alive in the way that actually makes an impact. So I'm not saying there are no people that use critical thinking. No, there are a lot. I have friends that do that. But to be able to use it properly is always a problem. And I hope you'll find out shortly why I made such a very bold statement. So what we're going to be discussing on the screen, we're going to be looking at, of course, I'll introduce it. I'll talk about the scope and process, the applications, informal and quick approach, and of course, tips for improving it. Now, let me make it clear. This is a 20 minutes webinar. We have a whole course on critical thinking that will take you about a month, which has been, it's being launched. So don't think that this is it. No. This is a snippet, but it's still valuable enough to get you results on Monday morning. And if you don't get results, please write us and tell us why. I will be glad to take you offline. But we expect that you get back to work, and that's what Abby is saying, and start throwing the buzzwords of these things that will be explained to you. Now, of course, being able to think critically will make you indispensable. That's very clear. AI has come. Everybody's freaking out because of what it has to do. But Fifile says, hey, AI can process, analyze vast amounts of data. But it at the moment, and I'll be careful to qualify it, at the moment, it is unable to replicate the creative and critical thinking abilities of the human mind. And unfortunately, I don't have time to explain what that means. But what it simply means is that if AI writes a particular thing, it only gives you one perspective. And that perspective is also data that is picked up from other perspectives, jumbled up, and with errors. That's why you see the authors or the creators of the app would always say, please pay attention, watch your back. This thing may not be accurate. And that's the reality. Critical thinking is the ability to quickly look at those perspectives. And that's what AI cannot do at the moment, because it just gives you one-dimensional or one-sided, and in most cases will not be able to criticize its own opinion. And of course, the world has gone from information age, we're now in the AI age. So from information to artificial intelligence, which is a bit more conceptual in that sense. So definitely, AI, critical thinking, I can tell you, is going to take a while for it to be replaced by artificial intelligence, and that's if it does. And I think that is worthy of note taking and paying attention. Now, let's look at how critical thinking applies to everyday life. So we looked at very, very simple baseline examples. So for instance, how do you make basic personal decisions, such as the part of town you want to live in? Now, so we're like, that doesn't hold water. Well, it does hold water, because for those of you who are young here, because the young people's school, I want to bring this in alive. Somebody told me, a very senior, professional brother, I call him brother, but we're close. He says that he noticed something over the years, that people that come to Lagos, where they start living in Lagos, actually determines a lot about their career opportunities and potentially the trajectory that they may take. But his main point was that it also determines where they stay forever in Lagos. Now, I'm not disputing or disregarding or disrespecting where all the people on this call who live in Lagos are coming from. Please, no, that's not the. I'm just trying to explain that critical thinking, get as it be, speaking our language. So, for instance, when I came to Lagos, and this is not a personal, gratification conversation, but just to explain the point, I told myself that, see, that's when I came back to serve in Lagos. I said, I want to live in Victoria Island. I'm not kidding. And because everybody was like, you're a young man, get somewhere. I don't want to mention the place so nobody feels embarrassed. Rent is this. I said, no, I want to live in VI. My office is in VI, and that's where I want to stay. But that's where I ended up staying. That's how one time I was just taking a walk from the client side, or we're driving in the client's vehicle on the client side, and then I saw my friend from NYC. I said, dude, hey, I'm looking for a house, and I want it in VI. 3 days later, the guy called me. He's an agent, and he says, I found a house for you. And that's how I lived in VI. Now, what was the implication? That's where we started living when we moved to Lagos. So I was already used to that lifestyle. And I felt that's where I wanted to be. So all the night parties to go and meet with Achaleke, the chairman of McKinsey, that I was privileged to be part of, the club. Yeah, I went to club briefly. I'm sorry, no disrespect. I'm just kidding, just to get your attention. Yeah, you understand what I mean, right? That's a joke, by the way. So I did that. And I met Achaleke, of course, by sending a message now, you may not remember. But you understand, and that's what it availed me to live in VI, not to be rushing and say, traffic, and I want to run. The action is here, the firms are here, the companies are here, the clients are here, and that's what I want to do. So critical thinking, where you want to live. Of course, if you're married, it also affects the kind of schools your kids go to, how you and your spouses and the stress levels, hypertension, heart attack. Like, it's a whole combination of decision making for where you live. I'm telling you the power of critical thinking. Secondly, which bank to bank with? I'm like, hey, are you serious? Yes. Now there are all kinds of bank apps proliferating. And people are thinking, what kind of bank? Which bank should I bank with? And so people are not strategic or critical enough to think that if I bank with this bank, it gives me a higher chance to get loans or a higher chance to do my business, or I'm positioning so that when I'm applying for visa, these are the banks that are more professional in helping me. I don't need to go and do so much to get my papers and all. These are all stuffs around critical thinking. Let's look at how you manage your personal finances. A lot there. I think you can stay tuned for further webinars to learn more about that, because we're going to come back to you on that. And then, of course, very important one for people. Should I go back to school or should I advance my career? This one is a much troubling one, I must say, because people always get confused. At what point do they cut short their education? And then when they have academia enthusiastic parents that put them under pressure to go back to school, they also struggle with that. Of course, some other people have strategic reasons to go back to school, to meet their fiancés and fiancées and so on and so forth. But that also requires critical thinking, and you will see why these things are beginning to why they're very important. So critical thinking will make you richer, happier, and more fulfilled. Yes, you read my lips. Of course, there are other things that make you happy, richer, and more fulfilled. Now, at work, you want to write a pitch proposal, policy document, data gathering for a product, market and industry research. That's where critical thinking is lacking the most. And we see these things every day. So critical thinking will make your job easier and clearly make you more outstanding. So let me give you one indicator. You hear things like your boss, your leader, would always say, hey, I want to hear what Abigail will say. Now, when you begin to hear, I want to hear what Abigail. So the meeting has not finished. I want to hear what Abigail. So Abigail wants to talk. Hey, you now shut someone. One noise maker. Hey, let me hear Abigail. Then you already know your critical thinking is hitting the roof. It happened a lot, and sometimes exciting, because when I go out with my younger colleagues and we're in conversations, and then the client says, hey, let me hear from Victor, or let me hear from Wando, or let me say they have arrived. All right. In other words, Manu, you're good, but let's hear from your people. How about the government? Of course, I mean, you guys know. Remove subsidy or wait for a perfect time. It's only like, oh gosh, shut up. Sorry, I'm being dramatic. Please follow me. Just to keep you active. They will edit all these ones. But enjoy it while it lasts. So there are arguments. Let me give you an example. Some people say that was the wrong timing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But some other people said that was the perfect time because it was called the honeymoon period. That if that happened any time beyond that first week, then it will never happen. Now, don't get me into that debate. I don't have any sides. I'm just trying to show you the lack of or thereof of critical thinking. And what I mean by that is whether there is or there is no critical thinking. And you can see the implications on you and I's life, whichever way you view it. Invade Niger or mind your own business, right? Or your own issues. I won't talk much about that. I'm just trying to tell you how critical thinking works. Control FX or float the naira. What kind of palliatives are most critical? All this are a product of critical. So some of you on this call listening to me will do and work with government. And when you get to that, I'm not even talking about being in charge. You're going to be the analyst, the generalist, the advisor who will be required to make those recommendations. And I've seen over time with that number, my own young colleagues in the room when such decisions are made, and they have the capability to sway or not sway those decisions. And that's what people don't know. There are more unelected officials in the room than elected officials that have a stronger say on what happens to us than we know. I'll leave it there for now. So, government, so we're excited to teach people critical thinking so that when they get there, they can make our own lives better. Governments seek critical thinkers who can apply these skills to solve complex problems, because trust me, there are complex problems in government. There are too many interests to manage, and critical thinking would be a great tool. Now, individuals are typically described as a product of their choices and decisions. It's the quality of the judgments they make. And when you look at something, did you think well at all before you did this move? And this is what we hope you will learn from this. Now, critical thinking is rightly placed in what we have called the world of work, which Wando a bit of highlighted. And this in itself is another webinar for another day. And I will keep telling you what to expect in future. But just look at it where it's cited, because we're like, what is this? This looks busy. Yeah, there's context, economy, sectors, industries, companies, organizations, institutions, functional role. In other words, when you get to the office and you sit down and say, hey, I'm in charge of social media handle, that's my functional role on my JD or aspects of your JD. There's a whole connection between that thing you're doing straight up to the economy. I repeat myself, you are handling social media handle of your company, but your responsibility is directly connected and flows straight to the economy. Story for another day. Requirements: knowledge, skill, and work ethic. Knowledge, skill, and work ethic. Work ethic is on the table. That's the attitude. And then lastly, the outcomes. The thinking. Thinking comes first, then the documentation, then of course the execution. And let me tell you this categorically, if you ever respect, and that's why I said I'm going to be making very, very strong statements because of where I am in my career, where I sit. The people at the thinking level are paid the highest. It's not the people that are doing the execution per se. And when I say execution, I'm not talking about the people that get the things done overall. Everybody must get stuff done, even the CEO, the co-founders and so on. But I'm talking about the guy that climbs the mast in MTN. Well, I didn't want to mention this, but in a telco that climbs the mast to get up there and go and change it. That's the guy doing the work to ensure you and I can make our mobile phone calls. 12 midnight, there's a storm. Our base station is off. They call him, wake him up from the comfort of his wife's, and family's house to go and fix that mast and be a hero. He's still paid the least. So he's paid. Sorry, not the least. He's paid compared to the CEO. Is like this, and the CEO has never climbed a mast. In fact, came from I'm just getting an example. Came from the pharmaceutical industry or government or somewhere else, and yet he's paid almost 100 times more than that guy. What does that explain? The CEO is paid to make decisions. So thinking is valuable. And I think as we continue, you will see my point. So what is critical thinking? Now, this is where I said it. I said that we always have a problem with defining critical thinking. But I've not seen anyone who has explained critical thinking properly in a way that people get it. Of course, there are other courses here and there. Maybe I haven't taken those courses and I've not had to, but I believe you will learn something today and you see the practical application, especially in a context like our country. Now, the lack of self-awareness is the first impediment of critical thinking. And I had to pull that out first because when you live in a society that is plagued by different sociocultural issues, critical thinking is dead on arrival. So when we go to the ballot, and I'm going to take a sensitive issue, just getting there, there's no critical thinking is shut down and everything else rises. So you ask questions like, this guy is from my place. But question, this is critical thinking. Which person since 1960 has ruled Nigeria and their own specific people are better for it? Maybe they are, and I don't have the data. And I'm sure maybe there's one or two outlier presidents. I'm talking about Nigeria now, for those of you who are joining from Nigeria, who may have done that. But it's not very important. But most times, and even when you look at the people that have ruled the most, if you notice, it doesn't reflect. So critical thinking will tell you that, in fact, the person that will likely do you well most times may not be someone from your place. Now, I'm not saying that is the case. It's but critical thinking requires that. But unfortunately, you see what we have to deal with. That there's nobody who has ever come from this place that has favored people. In fact, he cannot. He doesn't have the courage to. What happens is they favor a few elite people, very few. When you look at some of the places where politicians gather, do you see religion being discussed? Do you see ethnic group? No. So why do you then think you, the guy at the bottom, that it is because of, you get it? All right, I make my point. I'm trying to explain to you how critical thinking has killed us. Everyone thinks clearly. The quality of our life and that of what we produce, make or build depends precisely on the quality of our thought. So when we say some people are doing well in other parts of the country or parts of the world, is really a function of how they think and the fact that they are dissociated from sentiments and certain things, at least at a certain level, to just think critically. And one of the things that's also helped some of these guys, because they've gone through wars, modern day war, and so on and so forth, that has availed them the opportunity to come together in unity and attack problems. So there are no prejudices or biases at that point. So shoddy thinking is costly, money, and resources. So let me give you the definitions, and I'm not going to define it. I'm not going to flash my screen. You can take a screenshot. I want to show you that it's hard to define. Let me give you one example. Look at Stanford's definition. Critical thinking is carefully goal-oriented thinking. Conceptions of it can vary according to its presumed scope, its presumed goal, one's criteria and threshold for being careful, and the thinking component on which one focuses. I've lost you. I know I have, at least a lot of you. Some of you get it, and if you did, please reach out to my colleague offline. I have some jobs for you, like hot jobs. But if you understood that and you can explain it to us, you passed your test. I have clients waiting on you. They're waiting to hire you. Thought co. Critical thinking refers to the ability to analyze information objectively and make a reasoned judgment. That's clear. Reasoned judgment. That one is fine. It involves the evaluation of sources such as data, facts, observable phenomena, and research findings. Now, that definition is great. Sorry, not perfect, but it's incomplete. It won't leave you with clear applications for tomorrow. The first one is the easier one, at least. Logic to identify strengths, weakness, and alternative solutions, conclusion, and approaches to a problem. That is almost second, but it will still leave you lost. So this now was not to, I didn't put this up to criticize the authors. No, they all mean something. But what I've realized is, the holistic definition of critical thinking required to make it easy to apply it tomorrow is what I would like us to take out from this session. And the best way to explain it is I'll explain it by telling a story. Now follow me. My lecture has just started. So here's Susan. Susan is in her early career and she has two options. She has to decide. Does she join one of these 3-month programs? There are these 3-month programs of 6 months. All these programs that are coming up, including the one we are launching soon, that teaches you a particular competence, learning area, and then boom, gives you placement in an organization that you desire. Or the second option is start a business. She's heard all these motivational speakers, go and start something, go and sell toothpick. Well, the motivational speakers are friends of the house. We'll call them to moderate our session, so no disrespect to them. But she has to choose between those two, so she has to make a decision. How can critical thinking help her make that decision? Let's look at it. Now, this is the beginning of the self-awareness problem. The first thing is that there's what we call the overconfident guys or the arrogant guys. Easy choice, and not guys. It can be ladies or guys. Women too can be interesting, right? It's only men, so everybody's balanced. So I have a preconceived notion, interest, or ideas on both, and I know. Where I go, my circle, my friends, they're always talking entrepreneurship. My father was an entrepreneur. He's always telling me to do something, and he didn't go to school, he didn't go to university, so I'm already biased. So there are preconceived notions. Entrepreneurship is definitely the way to go. There is tough choice. I need help. This one, the problem with it is self-pity. And that one puts you at disadvantage. I will need time, more information, and external advice to decide, or I'm basically too ignorant, limited in understanding to decide for myself. The third group is that here, I'm open-minded, which is really the circle group. And that is what critical thinking, listen, must be open-minded. That's why I started by using sensitive examples to get your attention, like the one on the ballot box. Now, I wish I had more time to give more examples, even to choosing spouses and all that. You have to be open-minded. And open-minded simply means I may or may not know what I want, but I'm willing to follow a structured and informed path to decide. So, this, please, if you're following me, which I know you are, I'm about to show you, this is your framework. I repeat, this is the most important slide in this presentation. This is the only thing we're going to give for free that is most important, which is, okay, you give me a framework. Now, my worry is, and we're not there yet as a country and as a group of people, and I'm talking Nigerians specifically, please know that my people, we're excellent, don't worry, we're ruling the media entertainment, and we're also coming with critical thinking, at least to solve our own problems, right? So, this concept of open-mindedness is hard. People think I get along with people here, and for those of you who like me personally and say, oh, you get along with people, you just know how to manage them, it's because I'm open-minded. So someone can come right in my face and tell me, man, you're stupid. And I'll be like, okay, I'm not going to take it personal. I take that as feedback. Feedback to me, number one, you're so good, so good a boss, you can be called stupid, or you're actually stupid. And it's open-minded. Meaning, what are you saying? What do you mean? I don't answer. Don't worry. People don't insult me. Nobody has told me I'm stupid in a while. Right? I mean, a long time. I can't remember. But what I'm saying is, open-minded, approaching the issue without a known answer. Nothing is off the table. I give you one quick story. I can't. It's just time. But no, nothing is off the table. It's a deadly thought. Now, unfortunately, I won't have time to tell you when you work with a boss or a leader who doesn't know how to handle tough, not feedback, tough recommendations, right? And know how to, and they're able to publicly say that idea is stupid, which they shouldn't, because the iPhone was very stupid. To think that you could come and take on BlackBerry, you must have been stupid. I mean, that's how I felt at that time. But you know where the world is today and where BlackBerry is. Number 2 is raise vital questions. Why, who, what, how, when, that complete sentence. And you perfect it with time. Must be able to define success upfront. Gather and assess data. Leverage reliable sources, including individuals, online, desktop, and from subject matter experts that have knowledge of that context. 3, test, evaluate. 4, I beg your pardon. Test and evaluate options. Now, here's the problem. Why are we not making sales? It's because our salespeople on Saturdays used to sleep too much in the office, or because our salespeople have a problem on Saturdays. Yeah, that's true. Did you test it? Is it true? Is it really that, or is it because you work longer hours on Friday? I mean, I'm just throwing hypothetical examples. Test and evaluate the options. Lastly, communicate effectively or take action. Now, this one is important because some of you are on this call and you'll be like, I'm always telling my boss, I know the frustration. But unfortunately, today is not the day of that training. You're unable to communicate effectively. So you don't appear like a good critical thinker. That one you need to, it's a different program. It's communication, business communication. Unfortunately, I can't touch that, but that is also important. So critical thinking doesn't end until it is communicated effectively. And I will give you one hack called Missy when we get there very shortly. So I started with an example. I'm going to take about 2 or 3: open-mindedness and which is self-awareness. I beg your pardon. And of course, structured thinking. So look at this. Look at this. Human beings, listen, please guys, follow me. Biased, distorted, partial, uninformed, and downright prejudice. You see these 5 elements. The average person who hasn't been taught critical thinking, or who doesn't cultivate critical thinking systematically, has one or all of the above, at least one or a combination of all of the above. I repeat. Now, the list, most time, for those people who are very open-minded, like if you're radically open-minded like me, because I feel like, and I can take some credit, I'm one of the most open-minded people I know around me, because some of the things I take when I hear, people wonder, but they don't know that strategy to stay relevant, right? So you don't become a general that will self-destruct. But anyway, business biased, distorted, partial, uninformed, and downright prejudiced. I don't even want to see it. I don't want to hear it. That's what I give an example. I was teaching some elderly, the average person in the classroom was over 40 or thereabouts. And I told them that, hey, where you come from, in terms of your background, you guys don't wear earrings. You don't wear expensive jewelry. But there your daughter, who you sent to US to go and do MSc, now comes back with this guy and says she wants to marry him and is wearing earrings. And he walks into the room. And somebody just chatted there and said, he's dead on arrival. And I laughed. And I said, yeah, that's true. I understand. It's not your fault. Downright prejudice. And I asked them 3 questions. I said, let me teach you critical thinking. And I want to use examples so some of you never forget. I said, number 1, what if where he comes from, wearing earrings is part of the game? Or some of you don't know Arabs and Fulanis can wear earrings, or Bororo people, where I come from, Northeast, can wear earrings. Okay, they do. Their men wear earrings. And I think some guys in the Asian past wear earrings. So okay, that example is too wild, but it's possible. All right. Okay, number 2. Why don't you take that as feedback? That you probably did not try in training your daughter for the fact that she still didn't get it. And what is she seeing and not seeing? So is either you failed as a parent in terms of your ability to transfer that knowledge. So take that as feedback. Not just, so listen and understand. But I now give them a more radical one. And this one will hit home for some people. I now said, what if it's an opportunity for you to convert the person? They now looked at me. Yes, through love and all that. If you think wearing a ring is bad, I mean, I'm talking as an example because I was talking to them, then you do the convert. You convert the person. You do the conversion. Go ahead and talk to the person. Of course, not to say, hey, stop doing, criticize, judge people. No. My point is, you have to be open-minded and not be prejudiced. And by the way, there are some amazing people out there who that's how they like it and that's their style. And there's nothing wrong with them. But I told you about people's cultures where they wear earrings, where men wear earrings. So when I told them, like, I said, that is the beginning of critical thinking. So your daughter just missed an opportunity to marry an amazing man who will not wear earrings in 10 years' time. You get over it. But you just missed the boss to marry. Okay, let me not give reason. He's a billionaire. All right. Biased, distorted, partial. So let's quickly run through the list. Our time is running. Biased. Showing an unreasonable like or dislike for a person based on personal opinions. So some people dislike entrepreneurs. They think they're just, some people are, of course, and some people also disrespect 9-to-5ers and think they're not ambitious. That is biased. And that will mislead Susan in making a decision. So maybe they've read the history of entrepreneurs and how they failed, and they automatically think that entrepreneurship is hard. Or they watch the video or some of the ones we put out sometimes and say, hey, this thing is a tough one. That doesn't mean it. We only, the people you're going to work for were once entrepreneurs. So biased. 2, distorted, giving a misleading or false account or impression. Relying on reviews only, for instance. Of course, reviews are very important, but you can't rely on reviews only to make a decision. And I've seen that go wrong with perceptions of some people. Partial, existing only in part, incomplete, favoring one side in a dispute over the other, also being biased, leaning towards the ones you prefer. So because your dad was an entrepreneur, you automatically think that that is the path I should take. But maybe you're a terrible entrepreneur, or you're not ready for entrepreneurship, right? Uninformed, most dangerous, little or no information. Now, this one, I wrote that person. I said, this is more, because uninformed is defined, it's self-explanatory. But I said, that is the most dangerous. Dangerous. Lastly, downright prejudice. I do not want to know, and I do not want to care. This is the person I'm voting for. Take it or leave it. That is downright prejudice. Sorry, I'm using elections to keep some of you awake, because I know it's Friday and you're looking at the time. You want to go and meet Achaleki too. Just give me some time, right? I'm almost done. Now, firstly, there will be no right or wrong answer. Let me teach you how critical thinking works. I wish I had time. I'll show you some examples, but let me use this simple one. Susan's decision will ultimately depend on the following. Look at her structured thought. She said, number one, what's my long-term plan? So she brings out what I call the horizontal line. Please, I'm now defining critical thinking. I'm giving you the application definition, the one that you will not forget. Those ones I give you a bit tough. I mean, you can go and read them. Some of you are too smart. You can figure that out and you will know what it means. But let me give you the one you never forget. It's very rudimentary, but it will give you a good foundation to now become, until you get advanced and you can define it like World Economic Forum and so on and so forth. So number one, horizontal line. What is horizontal line? Horizontal line is the perspectives. Horizontal line is the contexts, the buckets, the funnels, because there are different funnels. And you will get my point shortly. So number one, long-term plan. She has to first put that on one side. 2, the requirements, cost, time, and cost. I need to know this program is 250K. Where am I going to get that money from? Entrepreneurs, who's going to give me the money? Output, outcome, and impact of each, and reconcile against the objectives. Now, I'm using a lot of big English. My attempt was not to confuse you. I wish I could go more granular, but it's also to raise your taste buds, to tell you that there's more where this came from. LOL. But what I'm saying is that there's a difference of output, outcome, and impact. And my Abuja friends who work in the development space will know this very well. The problem is that she thinks that the entrepreneurship will pay her bills immediately. No, sometimes it doesn't. It's a journey because you keep investing and investing. So if your problem and the reason why you want to take up a decision is because you have responsibilities and priorities, then I advise you to take to explore other options. Well, maybe the other way around actually. It is a way that will bring the money quicker that can be used to take back that program. The impact of my decision on other individuals in her life, or in this case, your life. And then lastly, the endless other reasons. Now, how did I pick this list? It was quite random, and it wasn't structured, but it was deliberate to show you how wild she needs to put everything on the table. So what is she doing? Because you wonder, what is she making this hard? No. The reason why she has to pull out this list is because she needs enough context. Like you have to, the critical thing is that you are filled with a bag of options to begin to draw from. And you will see my point now. See my point. What is supposed to happen, because what we call length and breadth, is that the length, the breadth, horizontal, is long-term plan, requirements, blah, blah. She will now take each context and go deep. So, for instance, what do you define as long-term? How do you decide? Is this about passion or is it personal? Some people want to be entrepreneurs to impress their parents. Now, I picked, like I said, very personal examples. So you begin to understand, what do we now have as critical thinking? This is now the definition. Critical thinking is the length. So critical thinking is the breadth and depth of your understanding and processing of any issue. The breadth and depth. So on this chart, I did a 5, what I call a 5 by 2. I did a 5 by 2. What is a 5 by 2? It's not even 5, it's 4. The big things that need to be considered. Then within each of the elements, I now go further. Length and breadth. Or I would say breadth and depth. So what does critical thinking mean? You take each perspective, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You now take each of the perspectives and you go deeper. Now you're wondering, okay, so this is a bit hard. I mean, it's hard because it's Susan's problem. And Susan's examples are very, very personal and subjective. But now let's talk for a subsidy. Let's talk invading Niger. And you begin to see that this my 5 by 2 no go work. You go need like 10 by 15 because you need to think about international community, your local people, people from the north, the economy, your own political ambitions, blah, blah, blah. Your context has opened up. And then you now take each point. What do you mean by political ambition? Back. What do you mean about foreign interest? Back. What do you think about the Niger people themselves? Back. What do you think about people from the north? Then you now finish. Sometimes you have to actually use a mathematical model to make that decision. But beyond that, it gives you all the options on the table. Critical thinking is hard. That explains a bit of the gray hair, by the way. So, to connect what I just said now with this, because all I've taught you, you won't forget, is just remember, what is the breadth? How many options have I thought about? What is the depth? For each option, have I gone deeper to understand the implication of each option? Then you have begun to think critically. So to identify its purpose, questions at issue, as well as the information and inferences. So you say, hey, northern governors come, how far? What is exactly this issue? I don't understand. International community. Okay, so what's the problem? United Nations, what's the story? Let's go check some data. Anybody, has there ever been a scenario like this? What were the lessons? What happened? So I'm using that example, but I want to bring you home so you don't forget. And I'm not criticizing any decision, by the way. Please, this is a full disclaimer. I do not side, I did not express my opinion on the matter. I'm just trying to tell you that critical thinking is required in everyday life. And I pick something to get your attention. To assess thinking, check it for clarity, accuracy, precision, relevance, depth, breadth, significance, logic, and fairness. You know, sometimes when critical thinking just gets to its limit, you just say, you know what is fair? I want to add that so some of you don't become hard-hearted and saying, no, it must be critically analyzed. Don't go and break your family. You get my joke. All right. So let's look at structured thinking, because the problem with critical thinking, some of you are saying that I make suggestions they don't hear. Now, for a lot of people who know me, this is very common. You can see my table. Now, I won't give you the hint because this is taught in a proper critical thinking course that we have. But look at this and look at this. Please take a second. Some of you saw what I presented and some of you see this. I'm sure you already get the picture. Now, imagine if you're communicating to your boss like this. In fact, let me show you how some of you talk to your bosses. So what's the problem? Our stores are not doing well in Ibadan. Oga, desk, scanner. So you come on Monday, you say desk. Tuesday, you say scanner. Thursday, you say flash. Next week, you say Adobe. And then finally, in a random meeting, you say software. You run into the office and say, boss, I've heard it's software. They won't listen to you. They will now go and pay consultants like us to now come in. And these guys, they don't listen to us. Consultants think structurally, right? and consultant will present it like this. It's the same point they collected from you, and I'm not disregarding. It's my profession. I've done it for 15 years. I understand. There's much more than that. It's not just structure. There's depth too. But look at the way we present it. Then your boss will now start saying, that is it. That is it. Please, I don't want to hear anybody apart from Wando. Then you're going to start beefing us. No, now. This is the reason. Can you compare this with the one I just showed you? If you want more, follow Crypto. Now, let's round up this. Or let's round this up, I beg your pardon. So, how can you become indispensable? And let's look at raising questions. So, I picked that example, which was the theme of this webinar, and I want to use it to explain critical thinking. So let's that's what we call integration and systems thinking. That's another level of thinking. I mean, when you see airports, a plane lands off and takes off every minute and a half in Heathrow. I think it's 2 minutes, maybe because one. A plane takes off and lands every 90 seconds in Heathrow. Every night it takes off and lands, and you never heard of plane crash, or you don't hear of plane crash often. The thing is not designed. You are running your small delivery business, and customers who are in Lagos or in Lagos cannot get it same day. You're not ready for systems thinking. That's another course for another day. Maybe when you become middle-level, we'll come and teach you systems thinking. But for entry-level, it is critical thinking first, which is the foundation of all thinking. For those of you who are spiritual, if you're not spiritual or superstitious, then you need to use critical thinking to survive. What does it mean to be indispensable? And I'm not comparing superstition and principle. I'm just giving that some people are superstitious, some people are. They're two different groups, please. So, that was to get your attention. What does it mean to be indispensable? Number one, how will success be measured? Who are the stakeholders in this quest? What are the tools, resources, and methods to explore and become indispensable? So I asked you guys a question. How can you become indispensable? And I've showed you the structure. Now, these are my breadth options. You remember what I said? My what? My breadth options. You remember? My breadth options. Now, it is important to add, before you master structured thinking like some of us who've done it for a while, and I've seen too many scenarios, I can do it without paper and pen and just lay it out very quickly. Before you get to our level, you can start with the ABC by laying out your thoughts like this. So your thoughts can start very informally, like the way I've stated it. But when you begin to rearrange it, there's something called Missy, and I can't teach you Missy on a free webinar. Don't worry. You will begin to connect it to look like this. I know I jumped like 100 steps to get to this point, but it's also to fascinate you and to draw your attention. Look at this header. How do you become indispensable? If you remember the table chair I did, just compare it with this. Now, somebody else can come, my colleague, my partners, my friends on this call, can look at it and say, you can adjust it. They can rearrange this and even take it deeper. That's why in the world of work and work of knowledge, the person that wins is the person that thinks the smartest. It's not, that thinks with the superior thinking. I repeat, especially in organizations that respect meritocracy. I'm not talking about mediocre organizations that pay attention to other social sentiments, and honestly, they're not sincere with themselves. But any organization that is serious about meritocracy, where it is the smartest person, it is the smartest thinking that pays us, that goes first, irrespective of where it came from, not seniority or hierarchy, not observing protocol. That is the organization that lives itself and lives its founders. So, assuming you work for such organizations, or you get there and don't disregard and go and resign because your organization does not allow, please, small, critical thinking, right? Define success, define critical path, measure and track growth. And I use strong language. Yes, it's also deliberate. Define success. Now, this define success is one of the most important things you need to take away from this training, because most times, as an entry-level person, they have very limited, or as an early career professional, honestly, they have very low expectations of you. You are the one that will come out of the water and show them why they should have more expectations of you. And one of the ways is to define. And defining success doesn't mean you go and intimidate your boss. And they say in the critical thinking training that we should define success. What was that? I don't have your time. I'm busy. I know some bosses are not so nice. Like one, they're very arrogant. Define success. What's that? So it is important to understand that in defining success, you have what we call understand what is important, understand expectations. Okay, as KPIs, you can Google that. Reconcile both and determine your own exact role and responsibilities. Let me tell you what it means by understand what is important. Every firm at every time has something that is important to them. Every firm. Now, it's not usually, it's told in the strategy. But most times, because you're too low in the rank, you don't really understand. So I give an example of my cousin, and I wish I had time. She became partner in one of New York's top. New York is big. New York's economy is bigger than, I'm not sure. I'll check whether it's bigger than Nigeria, but I'm not sure. I'll check. Can't remember. But when you say top law firm in New York and made it in record time in about just 10 years to become partner in a very prestigious old law firm, she told me the story. And the story was her ability to continue to deliver value, even if you had to push out weekends and all that. And I'm not trying to preach weekend stuff here, but there were times that she understood the pain point of partners. And yes, she's a junior legal analyst down the line, but because she was hitting the pain points of the partner bypassed the entire hierarchy and picked her up and said, please, I don't want to follow me on this case. So he just came one day and said he wanted to punish her. He says, hey, or there's some bosses that are like, hey, take. I need this case reviewed and I want it on my table on Monday. Bam. In other words, there's nobody to do it. I'm frustrated. Take Monday. I want this case done. She says, okay. She took the case. When our own friends going party weekend, she said, she said, you know what? No problem. First of all, I'm black. I'm from Nigeria. Blah, blah. She took that case. She said, she worked from Friday to Monday morning. That she only went back to her apartment to change, refresh, and come back on Monday morning. And on Monday morning, she delivered the thing to his table. Something he did not expect. He just looked and said, what? You did this? From there, he started talking to her straight. So she stopped playing with the small boys on her level and started playing with the big boys, solving the big boys' problem. Some of you, your firm is currently fundraising. Your co-founder sends you a message on Saturday morning. Please, quickly, what did you say about that? He wants quick information. You ignore him till 4 p.m. Oh, sorry, I was at a wedding. The guy is fundraising. His head is hot. He just asked a simple question. And I know there's a sensitive matter. I want to come and talk about work-life balance in a different webinar. But what I'm saying is that what is important at that time? For some people, sales are down. A client just called from nowhere. Wants a proposal. Yes, the client is hot. It's Friday and you're like, we'll give it to you on Wednesday. Wednesday, how? We need money in the bank. Can we give this guy this stuff on Monday? You're disconnected from what is important. And you know the thing about bosses, they don't talk. And that's why Wando said it's what they call the omitting. You're not paying attention to what is important. So the people that understand what is important, are the ones that distinguish them. So when you know what's important, okay, so what are the expectations of me? You almost just give us data, finish the proposal, conclude this. That's your own expectations. So okay, so that's regarding this together. Okay, you reconcile both, and then you know exact responsibility. Sometimes your responsibility will mean to respond on the weekend to your farm, to the most senior person, your own line manager who is a bit hot-headed. You may choose to ignore him and tell him, pay him at 4 p.m. But your boss, who is 3 levels ahead, now reaches out directly to you, and then that's when you decide, you've missed the plot. I'm sorry. Define critical path. I've entered one of those terrain. The critical path essentially is, okay, so what are my current capabilities and my gaps? Stay tuned to Crypto, you keep learning that. What is a realistic personal development plan? Actually, a pragmatic one. And then lastly, what resources, mentors, and requirements do I need to deliver? Watch out for our personal development framework that will release soon. So just keep following us. Measure and track growth. Now, the problem is we don't understand stakeholders. Now, I'm sorry, it's going to sound like office politics, but there are stakeholders. Some cases, the board is the stakeholder. Some cases, the investors are the stakeholders. Some cases, they are part of the stakeholders. So you need to watch the stakeholders and balance stakeholders. You can't go and play office politics and pick sides and you're following your mates that they've not started their life. They're the ones telling you what to do. You've missed the plot too. You missed the plot. You will ruin your career. And this part of being indispensable. But you follow those who know road. You're talking about the person who built this business. You're talking about the person who understands these dynamics. And you are saying, no, don't be misled. Measure and track growth. Stakeholders. 2, focus on small wins. Small wins are, hey, Abigail, follow me for a meeting with this company. Follow me for lunch with this client. Are you available? I'm going to someone. Let's go. Small opportunities. But that's even an extreme case or a mundane case. I'm talking about my cousin's example. Now, the reason why you need that is that your ability to rise is not so much of what you're reading and the courses you're taking on course marketplaces. I don't want to call their names. Those things are fine, but respectfully speaking, what you need is more practice. Those courses have to be in perspective to your organization. So we have some people who they are reading and they're learning something that is completely irrelevant to what they're doing in their 9 to 5. I repeat, they are reading and learning, so they've ignored what they're supposed to become. They're jumping to something esoteric, something future. Meanwhile, the very one in their front, this data that needs to be analyzed, that we have to bring a consultant, Emmanuel Tafa and his team, to come and analyze. Meanwhile, right under it was taken out. Meanwhile, you're taking a course in a different. Meanwhile, the one in front of you, you're not paying attention to it. You missed the plot. You missed the plot. And I'm not disrespecting people's personal development plans. No, I'm trying to give it the way it comes. And I have a lot of passion in my voice is to get your attention, because we're quite distracted. If it's not video and dancing and singing, you won't get my. I can't get. So I'm trying to look for, and it's a speaking strategy. So please bear with me, right? Just flow with the energy. I know you like it too. You can say that on the comment chat, on the chat. Say, okay, I'm just kidding, right? All right, back to my point. And I'm rounding up. Don't worry. Like 2 more slides. So small wins. Now this small wins is the killer. I used to have this colleague, man. I can't call his name. You'll be embarrassed. But if he wants, I can call his name. We have a task. He would say, we have targets, we have deliverables. This guy will come to the office on Saturday and Sunday to come and clear his desk because he heard me say there's a new project coming. I remember the first day he told me, he said, I was in the office. So I'm trying to clear because we have a new project. I don't know if he has up to 5-6 years, but he's on the table now. He's on the table. And I have a lot of colleagues like that. They're on the table with the people that matter. They cut short their learning curve. Ladies and gentlemen, the task your boss gives you that you are able to conquer puts you on a path to quickly replacing your boss. I repeat, whatever you're able to do that can accelerate the process of eliminating your boss, accelerates your chance and shot at life to become indispensable talent. So I remember one of my investors, he told me he used to work for the Big Four. He said it got to a point, and you meet him one of these webinars, where he started doing his boss's work, so his boss became useless. That was the indicator. That's what you call track growth. At that point, so if you finish work, you send to your boss is still working. You are leaving the office at 6 o'clock. You are 23. Your boss with married, with children, with family, with responsibility is still there at 7, and you are working. I'm sorry. You still have some time. I mean, you don't get my point. Don't worry. I can't talk to you. I'm sorry. My standards are too high. Don't be offended, please. I'm sorry. I've lost you. Yeah, still average. I'm sorry. You go and listen to Obama's speech. There's asking what's your advice to young people. And they thought they start giving some fast. They say, listen, young people, just get stuff done. Don't try and become. Just get stuff done. Your estates, your books are not balancing. Some basic unit economics for your diesel consumption. People are quarreling. Bring out a bloody Excel, do the math, send it to them. That's how one guy like, who is this guy? Please see me in my office. You don't collect new work. Oh God, these guys don't get it, man. That's how some of us have built a bloody career by just solving problems for people. That's how we're writing memos for the president. They don't say, okay, we're working on this association. I say, okay, no problem, we'll come. We just wait. Next thing, we're going to Abuja, Central Bank. We're in the boardroom. Deputy governor is signing where? Let them in. No vendor certification, no vendor verification, no what's the name of your firm. You are in the boardroom of the central bank writing policy. With 100K cash in your pocket just for your sweat at that time. I mean, just like nobody, no vet, right? Just for impromptu calling. Mint, by the way, it was mint. Mint. Lastly, immerse. I love that word. And I have a dear sister who runs something in the name of that company. The word is so powerful to me. Immerse is, the problem with us is that we're not immersed. Even me, there are certain things that my partner will call my attention. Dude, you're not paying attention to this. You're not interested. I'm not immersed in it. You're an analyst. You work for a consulting firm. You are a sales analyst for a retail firm. You work for a government agency, development government agency. You work for a development bank. You work for, you're executive assistant to an artist. You're the EA or PA self, or front desk, random front desk, but you're not immersed. So you don't sit down and say, wait, I'm in front desk. I actually meet all the most important people in this company. Let me plot a chart. Let me go and study our visitors register. And let me see what insights I can glean. You are immersed. You're not just listening to music. You can't confuse your lazy youth. No. You are immersed. That see, with respect to the boundaries of this job, it can't pass my table. I am immersed. I have a consciousness of that task. You will be a superstar because you are paying attention and you're conscious of the realities of that job. So you're actually thinking. So you ask your boss, hi, Abigail, we did a proposal 2 weeks ago. How far? Have you heard from them? And they should look at you like, oh, that's so thoughtful. You asked. Hey, no, from them. I don't really okay, do you want to send a reminder to them? You are immersed. There's so many examples, but you should listen to one of those talk on that. That addresses it. So, ladies and gentlemen, our own framework says you define success, you come up with a critical path. I can't go into a personal development plan on this call. My time is up. And I can't go into measuring and tracking growth in more detail beyond what I've said and the dramatic examples that I've used. Now, let me give you guys my life hack. And this is, now, before 6 years ago, when I signed up to Audible, and I'm going to call names because I want them to come and look for me and make me an influencer for them so they'll pay me more money. You know, if you pray for me and they make me, I'll share the money. But you need to tell me you're praying for me. I need to send the days you're fasting and confirmation that you're actually doing that. So that when Audible calls me to come and be the ambassador for Africa, they pay me $1 million, I'll cut you something. Now, before I started using Audible, my intellectual lifesaver, in terms of, I had never read a book in my life from cover to cover because I think I'm dyslexic. So I can't concentrate for too long and read something else. I just won't concentrate. My mind will travel. I can't concentrate for long. That's the summary, right? But I listen quite well. I try. Even though sometimes I try to listen to motives, and that can mislead me. I assume, or I'm presumptuous. You see those sites on my board. We have popular platforms. Now, the problem with some of us is that, especially for people who are very superstitious, or I don't want to use the word spiritual, right? Or people who, and I don't want to use that, but we think it's just bad news. So we don't read the news. That's not accurate. You see, the entire world of work, I know this slide is busy, but follow me, please. The entire world of work, I repeat, the entire world of work. When I talked about context, so if Susan needs to decide, Susan needs context. The only thing that gives you the broadest context within the shortest possible time is news. Go and write it down. People that listen to news or read news, especially newspapers and all that, if you notice, don't they sound more intelligent? Don't they sound like the most intelligent people in the room? You're like, why is he always reading the news? And you are not the one delivering the papers. It gives you the broadest context because some of you are reading books and you are proud of yourself. One book, 1 month, but you're slow. The world will move and leave you. Your company is about to get into a deal. NMPs just went to go and borrow $3 billion. You don't know the implication on your business. You are there doing smeh. Later, you call yourself an analyst. You missed the bus. I picked these brands and they should come and look for me to promote them, right? But, and there's a logic to this. Let me draw a line. See, this one is luxury. I call it luxury news. If you have the money and the time and you can afford it, you'll be super. I have an Egbon, a mentor, much senior. He told me that he's been reading Newsweek since 1970s. He rose to the peak of his career and is one of the smartest men in the room every time we go. But I have the local ones and I pick them up carefully. CNN, someone like CNN is a bit too political. Leave that side of CNN. Focus on CNN has some interesting programs. Something Inside Africa, Icons of Africa. This one, they have the environment. Oh boy, listen, that's how tomorrow one client will walk into your office and the client says, what do you do? Say, we do ESGs. And you're like, you not start asking them questions like, where is this guy from? He's from the CNN show you watched. You just pulled it and boom, you have the attention. Business Day is wide in articles, in data, in research. Nairametrics is free. This is a subscription. You have to subscribe or you buy, but Nairametrics is free and has the latest news, so you can follow some of their special reports. Steers is the way you're going to use your last dime to pay for, and immerse yourself. It will cut short your learning into very, very short time, because this is the reason why. An average article can be listened to this 25 experience, has lived in 7 cities over 15 years, has interacted with 3 colleagues with similar backgrounds, has 2 degrees and a master's, has researched 7 other books, and then has experience even in 2 religions, has been married 3 times. When that kind of person sits down to write this is one person I'm talking about, he sits down to write an article. You don't need to be married 3 times, have 2 degrees. You will pass through his experience and understanding in the perception you understand about something, and your perception would, that is my secret. So until Audible 5-6 years ago, when I started reading books, I was consuming content, and my own was even crazy because I wasn't reading them, I was listening. So all the key CNN shows, I mean, you have what they call IMF Boss. IMF Boss comes to CNN to talk. Question, you see the foolishness, I'm sorry. You see the dumbness of, okay, that's too bad too, I'm sorry. You see the problem. I have your attention. If some of you see programs, oh, they are bringing this guy, he's a sharp guy, can you go, okay, he's a professor, Harvard, okay, the guy is on CNN, for goodness sake, why are you spending money to go and watch? He's on CNN, free of charge, he's on YouTube, he's going to tell you the same bloody thing he's going to tell you when he shows up in Echo Hotel. Listen to him. So when I listen to the IMF boss and I hear a perspective, this is IMF boss, IMF. Okay, I listen. I go to meeting on Monday with a client. The client is talking and I say, but have you considered this? Like, who is this guy? Come, you sharp, IMF boss. IMF boss. I tapped into our 25 years experience and I made a point. Or is it Farid Zakaria on CNN and his perspective of global politics and implication? No, now. So, news is shorter and it gives you more context quicker. So how do you read news? Information first, select 2 articles, observe new words, concepts, and thoughts, referencing, cross-referencing and reference. So you see a new word, hyperinflation. Go and check what hyperinflation means. Tomorrow, 3 years later in a meeting, you go for a meeting, you get as a client to sell software to CBN, and then you say, like the CBN is trying to tackle hyperinflation, which essentially is this, that. This software can help them monitor give this firm. Now that article where that guy read from what he learned from this training. The news gives you quicker, so it builds your context because you still have a long way to go, but it compresses it considering the experience that this guy has, which I've circled, and delivers it to you in one reading. So in one reading, you can read culture, politics, economics, social, technology, ESG, all of it in one article. One article. In conclusion, how do I improve my critical thinking? Everything I've said with respect to that framework, openness, data, blah, blah, blah. You have to keep a balanced number of mentors and you have to love feedback. I wish you understood what Wando said. You have to love feedback. We don't love feedback. And we don't know that sometimes feedback is someone shouting at you. Sometimes you don't know feedback is someone telling you you're not smart. You don't know sometimes feedback is someone developing an attitude towards you, your boss. You're saying that you're not there yet. Sometimes feedback is somebody pulling you back to a task several times, pushing you back. No. It's all feedback. And part of feedback, you must be likable. There's a millionaire in dollars that is one of our clients. He called me. He called his CEO and he asked her to speak to me to go and interview me for a job. I mean, for an account. We have an account in the US, one of our clients. And he wants to invest in Africa, blah, blah, blah. And he asked her, if he called her to speak to me to interview me, he said, hi, I want to ask you one question. The first question I want to ask you, do you like Emmanuel? We never met. We even video. Okay, we did video call. He said, I'm not interested in Emmanuel Smart. I said, number one, do you like Emmanuel? I was shocked. This is a 70-year-old guy who has been in politics, and a millionaire in dollars. In 70, he says, my first question, if you like Emmanuel, then we can start a conversation. You must be like, so we are not like Emmanuel, you don't care. And I'm not saying you have to kiss ass, please people, forgive my French, and all of that per se. But not everybody should hate you now. How? And even if everybody hates you, which is rare, but possible that they are wrong, because I've seen cases like that, not once or twice, and I belong to that group where everybody else hates you. But you're right. Now you must be an outlier. and you must be exceptional, like Steve Jobs. And there are people like that, I have friends and clients like that, and they're very dear to me. But as an entry career level person, which I'm talking about, except you work and you're in the wrong circle, you ought to set the standard. Okay, that's not related, but you get the point. Now, I'm not going into the who likes you and who hates you. My point is, you have to be a bit pleasant. You have to be pleasant. And watch feedback. So, superiors, non-celebrity coaches, you're probably going to meet me to come and talk. I'm sorry, disrespect. How many people don't want to meet? I don't have time. I'm already, you go and look for that boring speaker in your social circle, in your mosque, or in your Rotary Club. The guy doesn't talk, but the guy is a sound accountant. He doesn't have a social media handle, but the guy is Sabine. I ain't going to mentor you. Those kind of guys, those ladies, buy food, go to their house, go and play with their children. That guy will give you more value than a man. A man will just run because you're not going to pay Emmanuel. Honestly, you're going to waste a man's time. I'm sorry. You have to be very dead to me for me to mentor you. And I'm not talking, I'm just giving an example of myself, but there's several, you want to meet Jimmy Tay, we come and mentor. How would Jimmy Tay mentor you? Are you punishing him? I can't mentor you. I'm sorry. It's too far. Look for non-celebrity mentors. And they want to mentor because they like you for that reason. That's fine. That means you are really blessed and there's halo around your head that they're seeing. Good for you. But if not, look for non-celebrity mentors. They're sound and they can teach you. Sounding boards. Get sounding boards. Classic structured mentorship. You can also have that and show them you're serious. Then lastly, read the news. 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 I've said more than enough. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure speaking to you, and I look forward to meeting you in another podcast or another webinar. Cheers.